Hi, I'm Melissa Smith.
I'm Spencer Ziegler.
And I'm Serena Halstead. Welcome to Data Lit. So within our school district, like most other school districts in North Carolina, we're getting close to preparing for the final exams. Some of these will be the state standardized end of grade and end of course exams. As educators, we all know that these standardized exams tell one part of the story of how our students did throughout the academic year. In this district, we are very fortunate to have an entire department devoted to distributing and collecting materials for these exams, among other things. Today, we have Brian Sumner from the Wake County Public School System Testing Department to help us unpack where our standardized data comes from and to talk to us about the role of data. Brian, may you kindly introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us about your role at the testing office?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Brian Sumner. I'm the Senior Director for Testing for the Wake County Public School System. My history, a little bit about me, is I've worked at multiple levels. I've been a teacher assistant, a school counselor, an administrator, and a senior administrator, and now I'm Senior Director of Testing. So I've kind of worked at multiple levels and had a lot of experience both at the school and in central services. Our office distributes the materials, scores, cleans, and distributes scores for all the various state assessments.
Yeah, and actually, we had a question on that because I think when we think of those assessments, we tend to think of the EOGs and EOCs, right? But your department works with a whole bunch of standardized tests. What are some other assessments that y'all work with?
Well, we work with the academically gifted assessments like the CIGAT in Iowa. There's the NC check-ins that kind of runs through our office as well. The ACT suite, there's now a series of ACT tests that the state does, like ACT, the pre-ACT, the ACT work keys that we manage. There's the beginning of grade 3 test that's given to grade 3 students at the beginning of the school year. The access assessment that's given every year kind of in the winter. We work with the PSAT as well. There used to be a testing season, but there's really not anymore. There's really something going along year round now. Yeah.
Y'all are busy.
And Brian, I'm hearing multiple different types of tests that is being administered. But so my question here, what are the steps between students taking a test and teachers getting that data?
So it really starts even well before that. So we're now in April. We start planning the assessment several months ahead of time. So we've already sent the information files to the print shop to get the answer sheets pre-coded because they don't come that way from the state.
Oh.
We've ordered materials for the end of the year, or we're in the process of ordering those materials. Starting here in a few weeks, we'll start packing materials for schools, and then the assessments make their way to the various schools in the system. So then we do training for test coordinators. In some cases, we help out with the school level training, but for the most part, we train the test coordinators on the assessment, and they train the folks at the school. The assessment gets administered, and then we score the assessment, whether it's through downloading the online file for online assessments or scanning the paper answer sheet. And then each day we download and back up and clean up everything to make sure that everybody gets the score that they're entitled to. So we double check to make sure each student who tested gets a score for the assessment.
Makes me think of, they talk about with referees or umpires or something, that when they're doing a good job, you don't notice them. And it thinks about just as educators, we're always working with this data, and we don't see all those steps that make it to that.
Right.
And without that, we talk about we need that valid and reliable data. But if any of those steps, the data security gets messed up, then we don't have the data that we need. So it's interesting.
Yeah, what I've told, one of the things that I've told a lot of my friends is if they hear about anything that is related to my work, that I'm probably about to get in trouble for something. So yeah, we're very much behind the scene.
Very meticulous about the work, the process, right?
Yeah. And then there's that step afterwards about what we do with the data. I think that's something that we were talked about in our last series, that taking that data point and triangulating it with other data points to get a fuller picture of the story.
But oftentimes, as a teacher, I don't think about what stuff that Brian does. I know I give the test to the students, they take it, I get results, and I'm banking that those results are accurate. But I don't really think about what goes into the systems and processes that he would have to put in place to make sure that the results that I get are accurate, so that I can use that data to make informed decisions.
Well, there's a cool story that I can share about that. So a few years ago when we had the North Carolina final exams, the state scanning software is really good. There are a lot of fail-safes, a lot of backups in there to make sure that things go the way they're supposed to. And some of it from years of experience, we've looked at where those fail-safes kind of fall through and we know what to check. When we were given the North Carolina final exams a few years ago, there was a student who took an assessment and it wasn't really the correct one for them. And something happened and there was a scoring error. And when it came up, we caught it and we reached out to the school. It was one of those like final backup checks that we do.
Right.
And we caught it and contacted the school. And that student was not going to graduate with the grade that they got. If we hadn't caught that, it would have prevented that student from graduating.
So we know that, after the data makes its way from the student completes the test and then it takes it to you and you clean it and you give the results, that data is then made available back to students and to families. How does your department support the notion of sharing results with students and families?
One of the things that we do is our whole department works together to make sure that each family gets the individual student reports, which has it's a state report that has a breakdown of how that student did and how that student compares to other students within our school district, within the school itself,
right,
and within the state. That's one of the things that we send to parents, whether it's paper and pencil. We're moving toward an online option now, but we make sure that those get there. We also give the school a variety of reports to try and help with that instruction, to give some context to those scores. I know that the school accountability team and we work together on a lot of different things to make sure that schools have the most up-to-date information they possibly can. And then we also are instrumental in loading all the data from the scores into a place so that principals and school personnel can generate a variety of reports. It's not a stagnant report anymore. It's not like printing out a piece of paper so that people have the results. It's putting it in a format that's consumable, manipulatable, all those things so that people can get the information they need. And then there's a history of it. We get a variety of reports from the Department of Public Instruction.
Right.
So sometimes what we do is try and figure out how it's more consumable for principals, for school personnel. How can we make it more accessible? And one of the things that we've been instrumental in is trying to, as a department, not just as our team, but instrumental in trying to make sure that the data are consumable, because there is so much data out there, trying to make sure that principals and school personnel have what they need and then that they can move it around in whatever format they need to.
I like that because one of the things we've talked about in this series is everyone's data literacy and their ability to understand the data. Because if you don't understand the data, then it sort of limits or hinders your ability to make sense of it and then make decisions. So it's good to know, and I would have not thought about that the testing department thinks about that. Oftentimes you sort of think, okay, you guys just are giving tests and picking up tests and scoring tests.
Right.
But not that. So I like that you bring that up, that you're thinking about how we consume the results. Like that's something, within your control if you can help it. And how do you help us do that?
Yeah, because I think when I was in the classroom, I probably thought of most assessments as criterion reference, comparing against the standards.
Right.
But for it to be norm reference, to have that comparisons with kids within your class, within your school, within your district, within your state, you have all those extra steps to make sure that those comparisons are apt. And that is tricky, and I appreciate the context that you give with those assessments so that teachers and students and families can know what is kind of back to what Sandy Carter said in the previous episode. What is the data telling us and what is the data not telling us?
That's right.
We're fortunate in our department that we have leadership that really values wanting schools to have whatever it is that they need. I think that's throughout our department is we are always seeking feedback to try and figure out how we can be more helpful. What can we provide that would be helpful? What can we provide that will give more context to those scores? Because as you guys talked about, the context is really the piece. The standardized test scores are important. They're a valid data piece, but you can't look at a test score at the end of the year and get the full picture of what that student is. It's that snapshot. That's a snapshot of where that student is on that day. Mm-hmm. So context is important.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, Brian, one of the things we have heard that it's not always all business, and that you have have come across some funny stories in your time at a testing office in terms of things that have happened. I think for me, I know I often think, okay, well, there's nothing interesting or funny, or, you all just give tests and pick up tests. But I have heard that there are some interesting things that have happened over time. And so we're going to move to a section where it's called Believe It or Not, where Brian's going to share some interesting scenarios, and we as a team have to figure out whether it's true or not.
And maybe most of it will be true based on my experience
Have you
giving
laid
out
out?
tests in the classroom.
I think, which one? Any of you three? So, yeah, we'll compete, and listeners, compete along with us. Either of you think you're going to win this?
I think,
You're
I will win
confident?
this.
Okay,
yeah.
Serena's calling her shot. Baby style. Okay.
My confidence depends on what am I winning.
Bragging rights.
Yeah.
Immortality. That's what you get. You get immortality.
Yeah, through the podcast.
All
It
right.
is, generations from now, they will know
Okay.
who won this contest.
So let me give a little context for listeners out there. So every year, things occur during testing. A standardized test, really what it is what happens in Wake County should mirror what happens in Alamance, should mirror what happens in Surrey.
Right.
Whenever something unusual happens, it's considered an irregularity. Test coordinators send us their irregularities. We make a decision whether it impacts the validity of the test, and then we submit it to the state, and they keep a record of it.
Right.
So sometimes we get irregularities like, just your standard irregularities, something just unusual happens. These are the more interesting irregularities that leave an impact. An irregularity may not affect the validity of the test. In these cases,
They could have.
they could have, but these are some of the more fun ones that we've maybe not fun, maybe that's the wrong word. Some of the more interesting ones we've experienced through the course of the year. So one of these series that I'm getting ready to share with you is totally made up. I made it up.
Okay.
The rest of them really happened. So out of all the ones we're getting ready to experience, only one of them is made up.
Okay.
All right,
So
we got this.
I don't think he's putting the false one first. Wait, let me look. How's your poker face? The audience can't listen, but we can. We have an advantage. Okay. So give us the first scenario.
Okay, first scenario. A student was feeling sick, was really trying hard not to show it. Finally, he couldn't hold it back anymore and had only what we could classify as explosive projectile vomit. It went everywhere. There was even enough force behind it for it to get into the hair of the girl sitting in front of him.
I believe it.
Yeah, I'm saying that's true.
That's
Me
true.
too.
Yeah, okay, we're all saying
I can think you can get nervous enough where that can happen.
Yeah. I
I hate
agree
for
with
it
that.
to happen. I'm
Yeah.
surprised it didn't happen more, because I'm one of those, if I see you throw up, I'm going to throw up.
You're a sympathetic vomiter? Yeah.
All right, did it happen?
That one happened.
Okay.
right,
We all got
all right.
points.
Yes.
How about you, listeners? Let's see.
All right. I call this one the mouse in the house, and kind of picture like Stuart Little here. During the test administration, a mouse scurried across the room. A student who was testing pointed at it and whispered loud enough for other people to hear, "There he is again." And then resumed testing as if nothing had happened.
Oh. There's two levels to this. There's there being a mouse, and then I love that they talk about that, like Ernest Hemingway six-word story. There he is again. It's beautiful.
It's not the first time he's made his appearance.
Right.
It would almost be a misadministration if the mouse wasn't there, because they're used to that as the classroom environment. I'm going to say true. What do you guys?
I'm going to say true in that. I could see a mouse running in a room that is totally quiet. When it's testing time, everybody gets quiet to focus on that test. That mouse might believe nobody's in the room, so he's running around.
Yes, but then that means that we have mice in the rooms.
So say false then. Go against the grain. Let's make it so. Melissa?
I think it happened.
Okay, we're all saying true again.
That
Okay.
one happened. Yeah,
2 for
that
2.
one happened.
Now, number 3, I feel like this is the spot. Like, I think when I was going to select a response.
Oh, my God.
See, you put that one. Okay, so let's see this next one.
All right. I call this one itchy and scratchy. So the test administrator notified the test coordinator that a student had lice, but it wasn't just lice. The test administrator said the bugs were literally jumping off of the student's head and crawling across the answer sheet. Actually, I think she said dancing across the answer sheet. The test coordinator sent their most bald staff member down with a plastic bag to collect the booklet and answer sheet.
This is true because Brian was on the scene. He was the bald staff member.
This is a staff member. That's a clue. I'm going to say, no, I don't believe this.
That's it.
That's it. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that one bit.
I think that's false.
False. Okay. I'm just gonna. I don't want us all to agree on all these, so I'm gonna say this one is true.
This one actually happened.
Oh,
All right,
no.
gotta lead. Immortalized.
Y'all
I think
got
we
some.
should. I think we should stop the game right now. All right.
A student sneezed so violently that he lost his grip on the pencil he was holding. The pencil flew across the room and hit another student in the eye. The student who was hit in the eye couldn't complete testing, had to stop and go to the doctor.
Okay, that's false.
That is outright false.
That's false.
That did not happen.
No.
This feels like some, but I'm gonna. I feel like I should play it safe by saying true. I'm gonna say this is true again, just since you two said false.
And Spencer, if you lose, deduct a point. One of your points.
No, I mean we keep scoring the same way. What are you talking about?
You're leading us
Break
right
my
now.
lead.
You're leading us.
Okay.
All right, this is the one I made up.
Okay. Oh, so we tied. Each of us got.
All right.
Yeah, each of us got.
All
We
right.
can't do any more because then that was it. Like okay. So each of us got 3 right. So not bad. We'll see how
So it's a
listeners
three-way
did.
tie?
3-way tie. So we're all immortalized. in
I'm asking for
data
3%
history.
more in my salary.
You think? Pitch it up. See what you can do.
Brian, just let me know when to come back for my prize.
I can send you some number 2 pencils. We have a few of those laying around.
I will cherish it.
I love a good pencil. I
Yes.
love a good pencil because I have a really good sharpener.
There you go.
I love a good pencil.
All right. So, Brian, as we wrap up, what's one thing you would like teachers to know about the testing office?
One of the big things is test-taking anxiety is a real thing. Test-taking anxiety is a real thing, and students are impacted a lot of times by how adults react. So on test days, it can be really stressful, especially for teachers, for students. You know, the big thing for us is to try and mitigate that as much as possible. Stay calm, reassure the students they've had a year to prepare, and teachers have been teaching for a year. There's no reason to freak out on test day. It's just another day. Yeah, testing is important. Yeah, it can be anxiety and nobody wants to do it, but just know that the students are stressed out too, and try and calm them down as much as possible. The other thing I would want to share is, I know that you said one thing, I'm sharing two. The other thing that I would want to share is well, there's a big thing out there, like you lose your job from testing. And while that is true to some degree, you have to do something really, really bad to be able to get to that point. I mean, we're talking about falsifying data or giving students answers to questions. A simple mistake like not reading the directions exactly perfectly every time, that's not going to do it. Making a mistake is not.
You forgot a line in the
Right.
say
Right.
statement.
Right.
Right.
Can you go back and just say it over?
Yeah. We're talking about things that like falsified data, intentionally skewing results, intentionally violating test security, those types of things. Those things are those are bad. And we do have some of those that we deal with. This is my least favorite part of my job. But you know, overall, if you go in and you got a manual that tells you what to say and what to do.
Yeah.
It really isn't that hard.
And I feel like those two are somewhat linked in that, you know, there's that concept of mirror neurons, right? That when you see someone experiencing an emotion, your brain processes it as if you're experiencing it. So that easier said than done from here, but just the more you can make the testing environment a calm, you know, respectful one, then the better it's going to be, the more accurate data it's going to yield as well.
I feel I learned to appreciate that as a parent because I read that in Malcolm Gladwell's work about how kids read your body language. And so only as a parent did I recognize how important it is for me to internalize, like be conscious and aware of what messages I'm sending, verbal or nonverbal, so that, you know, your students can have because test anxiety for me is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like I suffer from it really bad. And so to kind of be in the mindset of, hey, it's going to be right. What are things we can do? Like just relax, kind of just lighten it up a little bit. Because I know for myself, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
panicking.
When my son was a third grader and he took the BOG, so keep in mind I was working in the testing office at this point. When my son was a third grader, my wife came in and he was about to take the BOG the following day, and he was anxious. And my wife came in and said, "You need to go talk to him. He's really worked up about this." And I was like, he's going to be fine. He's a smart kid. He'll be fine. And she was like, "No, you really need to go talk to him." And I went in, and he was emotional. He was like really emotional, and it had an impact on me. And I sat down with him and I said, "Bud, just go in and do your best. Whatever you've got, just do your best." And that's all I care about. If at the end of this, regardless of how you score, as long as you can tell me you did your best, we're going to be okay. And I could visually see him relax. And as a person who works in testing, that got me emotional. Right. It had an impact on me. So if I could tell a parent one thing, encourage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
I feel like the through line for this whole podcast is always we geek out going really deep into the data, and then we step back and say, all that's important, but ultimately it comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
Right. It's a human aspect to all of this. And so that's why I like the whole line that we had about the data tells a story, because in the story, they're human beings. And so need to keep that in the center.
And I'm going to say hats off to the teachers who, keep their composure so the students can feel comfortable within the classroom, because I'm sure teachers, get concerned about the testing results. So hats off to the teachers who make the testing day a fun day for the students.
Yeah.
One of our lines that we've shared with folks is one of the best skills you can have is to stay calm while everybody else is losing their mind.
Yeah. I like that.
So on that note, Brian, we thank you so much for coming over here and letting us know about the work that is done in the testing department. Thank you for, enlightening us about it's not just collecting testing materials or distributing them, but also making sure that when the results are in, you deliver them in a consumable way for our principals and our teachers to continue to explore what the data is saying. As always, if you have any questions, further comments, or notes, you can send us a message at www.wcpss.net/datalit. Thanks to Moore Square Magnet Middle School's Maya Smith for our theme music. And thank you, Brian, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Data literacy without the data. Thanks.
There you go.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.